Andrei Tarkovsky's film Solaris, made in 1972, is a film that has been recognized as one of the masterpieces in the world of cinema and offers a brilliant metaphor for individuals' journey in life. This film revolves around a psychologist, Chris, who undertakes a space mission to visit three scientists who are working on a station located on a planet called Solaris. He is there to assess whether the mission should be terminated. But when he arrives at the station, he learns that memories over there are embodied and become alive. And in Chris's case, his deceased wife came back from the dead, so to speak. Chris's interaction with these embodied memories is the crux of the story, leading him never to return to Earth and stay on planet Solaris, where he is living with his reconstructed memories. In this short video, I'll get into some of the psychological undercurrents such as Nietzsche's and Jung's concepts that underpin this film's brilliance, and simultaneously reveal aspects of understanding psychological development. Watching Andrei Tarkovsky's film Solaris on one level of analysis, you can take things at face value. For example, the interpretations of the planet at first glance seem animistic, as if the planet tries to communicate with men through their memory. Or to give another example, behind the idea that's been put forward by Snout, one of the researchers, namely that
«Должен вам сказать, что мы вовсе не хотим завоевывать никакой космос. Мы хотим расширить Землю до его границ. Мы не знаем, что делать с иными мирами. Нам не нужно других миров. Нам нужно зеркало».
Taking these points at their apparent value may not bring its fruits. A way these ideas can be subjected to further and more in-depth reasoning is if one looks within. Why do we animate the planet? Is the mere metaphor merely our need to reflect our own perception? The structure of this film is perpetually embedded in the Apollonian, yet it is also deconstructed by the Dionysian forces. Apollo can be conceptualized as a tendency to illusory structure, and Dionysus as destructuring it and revealing the truth. This dynamic between them, Apollonian Dionysian according to Nietzsche, primary-secondary function to Freud, introversion-extroversion to Jung, or even in the experimental psychology, motor and sensory types, on multiple levels of thought reveal a great subject of inquiry. As Solaris could be referred to and in tragedy, I'll refer to these forces mostly as Apollo and Dionysus. As in every great movie, there's a veil, and as Andrei Tarkovsky himself put it, all I want to say is that although in the end all art is tendacious, that even style is committed, this same tendency can be either swallowed up in the fathomless layers of artistic images which give it form, or it can be overstated as a poster, as it is in Raphael's Sistine Madonna. Even Marx, poor materialist, said that tendency in art had to be hidden, so that it didn't stick out like springs out of a sofa. Tarkovsky's film Solaris and the presentation of this veil not only allows you to sit comfortably on that sofa, but also brings forth a great question of one's relation to reality. A great veil calls one's psyche to project upon the material without cognizing one's way to a clear answer. So this artistic piece of work allows us to extract perpetual meaning from our memories. Yet this duality of forces or drives is still at the foundation of the ongoing dynamics. One point should be considered about the whole approach to symbolism. Tarkovsky pointed out numerous times to his audience that there is nothing behind the image, there is no symbol. I had the greatest difficulty in explaining to people that there is no hidden, coded meaning in the film, nothing beyond the desire to tell the truth. Often my assurances provoke incredulity and even disappointment. Some people evidently wanted more. They needed arcane symbols, secret meanings. They were not accustomed to the poetics of the cinema image. And I was disappointed in my turn. Such was the reaction of the opposition party in the audience. As for my own colleagues, they launched a bitter attack on me, accusing me of immodesty, of wanting to make a film about myself. So, let's see what truth might be hidden behind these images. Why? Because as Socrates said, an artist is the least likely person to understand his work. Secondly, all that is transitory is only a symbol, as Goethe put it. Third, a true psychologist hardly takes things at face value, and we need to delve more into psychology, as Tarkovsky himself put it. Nothing in cinema at the present time is more neglected or superficial than psychology. I'm talking about understanding and revealing the underlying truth of character states of mind. This is largely ignored. Taking with a grain of salt Tarkovsky's belief in symbolism, we can see how his images show the interaction of two opposite drives. Symbols themselves, words and images, call us to project meaning, returning the dynamism of two forces. So in the context of this film, the mirror metaphor is a reflection and a cause. From it, meaning is being extracted from us toward the external and internalized again, with perpetual movement of energy. Now, horse we could conceptualize as an approach to taming one's instincts. Even the nature images as a reflection from the Apollonian perspective toward the unconscious and primary part of being, as nature is the grounding of all. We can see that in symbolic act, like character interactions as well. Upon Chris's arrival, we see three different men in this scene already, a characteristic of Tarkovsky's approach. Each man in this movie is a symbol, a sign toward a thought or a path. Gibarian, a man with a bad conscience that his introversion has waited on him, commits suicide, but yet his memory is still alive on the station. Another man, Snout, who takes aspects of his structure-building introversion, tries to assimilate it to the external world. He acknowledges the limits of knowledge, which is reflected in his approach to intoxication.
А что? Разве человек, который готов положить свою жизнь ради этого несчастного контакта, чтобы узнать, чего он стоит, не может напиться?
The third man, a scientifically minded soul, dissects his inner parts as he dismisses the notion of their own existence for research purposes.
Человек создан природой, чтобы познавать ее. Бесконечно двигаясь к истине, человек обречен на познание. Все остальное блажь.
The end of the movie realizes that there's more to this world than knowledge and scientific duty. The main character, the psychologist, finds his reality in the constant withdrawal toward himself. The memory is the path that he takes. It is more real than the actual reality. They are faced with the same story towards introversion, but react differently, as if different drives are making the division of reaction, creating unique characters, each character with his own journey. Isn't this one level of Apollonian, the common story toward introversion, and Dionysian, the division in their approach, that is affecting the movie? And we also see symbolic act in abstract journey. Apollo as Solaris, Dionysus as Earth. If we put this in Jung's terms, introversion is the withdrawal toward the subject, which we see on Solaris' planet, and extroversion is the transference of energy from subject to object, which is a prerequisite for functioning on Earth, but is also in danger of being too dependent on the object and externally governed rules. On Solaris, subjective structure is being built by Chris, and on Earth, the object-related structure is being destructuralized, showing the coexistence of the two forces with respect to time. So symbols are not something that stands as a name or an image only, but as the act itself, and both are subject to these two drives. All these symbols are synthesized under one roof, that is the whole film Solaris, which is synthesized by Tarkovsky, who is synthesized by his family, that is synthesized by their culture and history. Though we've mentioned briefly how Chris's approach on planet Solaris is seen in both Apollonian and Dionysian light, this perspective is worth emphasizing. The psychologist facing his memory brings forth a subjective structure of that reality in the spirit of Apollo. At the same time, his act of introversion has Dionysian characteristics, as he's destructuring, that is, communicating to us the falsity of earthly illusion, which holds that the inner world, the Solaris, shouldn't be explored.
То, что мы знаем сейчас о Солярисе, имеет отрицательный характер и уподобляется горе разрозненных фактов, которые невозможно втиснуть в рамки каких бы то ни было концепций.
Точно в таком же положении мы находимся и сейчас.
The battle between these forces is not only fierce, but is in a constant reciprocal relationship. One tribe is not likely to accept the other, but is faced with it either way. Isn't this how tragedy is born? The woman that was recreated from the psychologist's memory, when detached from the psychologist, faced serious injuries. The moment the psychologist got back to the external reality, introversion and his memory aspect were suffering. However, when he's with his memory, one's touch with reality is diminished, and the aspect of his introversion knows it. Even though we see memories outlive individuals, we can say functionalistically that memory is for us to learn. What is the case of the psychologist on Solaris? Why didn't he learn from his experience and stay in his memory construction? Psychodynamic theories are subject to personal and cultural influences. This allows it to be a persuasive interpretation, which, with the aim of a good psychologist, is to help one adapt to reality. These theories don't necessarily have to be based on experimentation. Phenomena exist without a scientifically sound theory and its approval, even though it does hold tremendous predictive power. Psychodynamic theories are built on the ground of past interpretations, from which stems the predictive power toward explaining the phenomenon and influencing it. So Freud, Adler, and Jung all looked at their own and others' pasts. Jung even broke the ice further, toward myths, religion, and history. They all came back from their introspective journeys to adapt their interpretation to the real world, helping others become aware of their own depths. Jung was subject to it, and so was Freud. Both men came back, but Nietzsche, as was noted by Jung, didn't. As a pioneer for structure to orient thoughts, feelings, and behavior, it is natural that the psychologist is the most invested in his known subject, himself and his memories. That is the reason why the psychologist chose the path he did in comparison to other characters. Unfortunately, the learning that occurred, and we can see it by the way he interacts with his father on Solaris and on Earth, was only lived through Chris's memory and wasn't externalized. Under given stressful circumstances, a regression in thought, emotion, and behavior occurs. Here one leaves reality and externally based rules behind, where for him the out of this world is the inner world with an ever-reinforcing influence, unlike externally governed rules. This way one's function and relation to external objects are altered. The individual is drowning in the other world. The balance between Apollo and Dionysus is non-existent. And today, if we consider that we are having trouble adapting to reality, or even accepting it, aren't we on that planet Solaris, where we are just trying to reinforce our favorite aspect of our memory, which, as Solaris has shown, at first is hard to accept, since it's too good to be true compared to the real world. We can see it in the film how hard it is to accept the subjective reality, but eventually one falls prey to it the more familiarity with it there is. The myth that we live by is by going and conquering the unknown, especially the one that is inside of us. This film, taking the role of a psychologist, shows indirectly, through abstraction and metaphors, our own journey from external to internal. This abstraction allows us to assimilate concepts and see what it means to embark on this journey, to see what risks there are, but also what potential, even revolutionary wisdom one can get if one is willing to come back to that reality, that is Earth. Due to this symbolic insight, everyone is capable of extracting meaning based on his own personality. These two forces, Apollonian and Dionysian, along with the dynamics between them, are parents for meaning, a personalized tragedy through which we live and become better and worse. As it is based on Stanislav Lem's novel Solaris, Tarkovsky, through introspection, extracted elements of himself from the book and consciously adapted them into the film. The influence of those insights of oneself was sublimated, that is, adapted into the external world. Not on Solaris, but on Earth, where stability and order are placed.
Потому что там самое интересное сам Тарковский. И вот он везде, он в моем персонаже, он у Донатаса и так далее.
So, this film is the byproduct of the value of the film creation and the novel. Tarkovsky tamed his introversion through the artistic film Solaris and sublimated aspects of his personality to society, which we can assimilate with our experiences. So, looking at the film and what it means to an individual, we can see that there are two forces that are always acting with respect to each other. They express themselves through symbols and symbolic acts. Assimilation of them comes together with a persuasiveness that is embedded in an ever higher contextual processes, such as the character's journey, its interactions, images related to the story, the author's experience, culture, and historical valuations. That is why on one level of analysis, the interpretation is prey to perspectivism. However, underneath various interpretations, one's acting is an ever-ending structuring and destructuring, embedded in illusion and truth, which ought to maintain a relationship of one drive to the other. Otherwise, it makes the character, whether it is Chris or an actual individual watching the film who's part of this never-ending dance between Apollo and Dionysus, lose their reality, either one or the other, making one appear ugly in his dance or have no one around to dance with and around him.